Hi, my name's John Brown and I work for Ryedale District Council. Been working for about 20 years now and in the same job, and we look after waste collection and recycling. So what we've got here today, we've got some of the materials that we collect for recycling, and I'm just going to run through that and show you what goes in what box and what goes in what bag and so forth. So I think we'll start with the glass actually, because that's probably the easiest, if that's okay.
Yep.
So we've got a black box for glass, which most residents should have. And inside the box we've got different colours of glass, which are all fine. Glass bottles and also glass jars. And the only thing we ask, don't leave food and so forth in them. If you can just give them we don't want them dishwasher clean, quick swill out, chuck them in the box. The only thing we really don't want in there are things like milk bottles. It's obviously not a recycled bottle, it's a reusable bottle. Obviously the milkman comes and picks that up, collects it from the doorstep, so that gets reused. But pretty much anything else, any colour, you see a blue bottle there, green bottles, anything at all, I say just a quick rinse out, and they can be quite easily recycled.
And lids off, John?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter about the lids, preferably off, but it doesn't matter. If the lids are on, it doesn't cause us a problem.
Okay.
And the other thing that some people ask about are the labels. They might have a plastic label here, a paper label there. Don't worry about that. We're not bothered about the labels. And these little plastic inserts here inside olive oil or something like that, don't worry about anything like that. That will all come out in the process. So I say we just ask if there's not any food or just so long as it keeps it fairly hygienic from a public safety point of view that way.
Now, John, some people might wonder, I've just broken a glass on the floor in the kitchen, or I've got an old light bulb or something like that, obviously glass. What would you say about those? Too dangerous to put in, yeah? Or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the guys, when the chaps are collecting it with a vehicle, they do have gloves, but we would prefer, if there's some broken glass, that you just pop it in the wheelie bin, the wheelie bin with the rubbish that doesn't get recycled, the stuff that goes to landfill, and we just ask if that just goes straight to the landfill, just straight in the bin. And if you don't have a bin, if you're collecting in bags, if we collect from your house using bags for some reason or another, if you can't have a bin, if you just put the glass in some newspaper first and in a plastic bag, so it doesn't cut the collector when it's collected.
Okay.
I mean, if a bit of broken glass is in the box, it's not going to be such a problem, but obviously we don't want broken glass sticking out and causing the operatives a problem. So that's pretty much the glass. And also coffee tops and that sort of thing, doesn't matter about those. If they're in, they're in, but we would prefer the tops off if possible. So that's that one. Right, the other box, so that's a black box for glass. And there's the green box, which is for plastic bottles and cans. Now, I will say at this point, a lot of people ask me about this, can we recycle yogurt pots? Can we recycle food trays? At the moment, we're not doing that. We may be able to do it in the future. There's a limited demand for mixed plastics in the UK. And there's a limited, there's a couple of companies doing it, but a lot of it, the mixed stuff actually goes overseas to be sorted. So the plastics industry is working on, getting more processing capacity here. And in a few years we may well do that, but they have asked us at the moment to stick to bottles. Some councils are doing mixed plastics. Scarborough next door, for example, do mixed, but we're just doing the bottles. And essentially the message is, if it's a plastic bottle from your house, we'll recycle it. Very simple. So if it's not a plastic bottle, just discard it into the bin. So yogurt pots, food trays and that sort of thing, and plastic bags, they can go in the bin. And obviously you can reuse bags and buy reusable bags. But
what about at your sort of district place like Wombleton, recycling centres? Would they take things like yogurt pots? Is there any difference to what they collect as to what's collected on the doorstep?
We have 3 household waste sites, or skip sites as they're sometimes known. One in Malton, one in Wombleton and one in Thornton-le-Dale. And there's only one place that I know of at the moment that will take mixed plastics, and there's a big skip at Thornton-le-Dale household site, and they will take mixed plastics. But if we do plastic anywhere else, it's just plastic bottles.
Right.
So again, any plastic bottle from the house. The only thing we're not so keen on is things that have had chemicals in the garage or old engine oil, because there might be a lot of liquid left in. But anything from the kitchen utility or bathroom, shampoo, cooking oil, you know, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. And there's some Persil and stuff like that, cleaning products, bleach, anything at all. And again, tops are better off than on. The only reason for that is we do have a vehicle that crushes them down when we collect, and if the tops are left on, they're harder to push down.
So the tops can go in there, just take them off?
Yeah, that's probably good advice.
Right.
Like that one, for example, was it's the particular plastics, polyethylene terephthalate, PET. But we don't want people to get mixed up with all the different numbers and the different types of plastic. I mean, I know that's PET, polyethylene terephthalate, because, well, I just know it is. But you can see with the top on, there's some tremendous pressure in there.
Yeah.
And it does help. Obviously, the lorry fills up quicker if the top's on, so it's better with the top off.
Okay.
But yeah, pretty much anything from the household that's a plastic bottle, and we'll have that. And also in this box, metal cans, and we collect drinks cans, food tins, you know, baked beans and so forth, and also aerosols. Some people might not know that we do aerosols.
No, I didn't know that.
We can recycle those as well.
Right.
The only thing we ask is that they're empty, not half full, just for safety reasons, really. But if they're empty, put them in, and we can deal with that.
And what about big tins? You know, your larger tins. Say, you know, just had Christmas holidays, and people might have some big, you know, sweet tins. Is that kind of thing too heavy duty?
That's fine.
Or?
No,
yeah.
That's fine. Biscuit tins, cake tins, anything like that. If
Right.
it'll go in the box, you know, we're fine with any metal container. If it's something like saucepans or bigger metal items, then they would need to go to the household site.
Right.
But any tin container we can take. So aluminium or steel, aerosol, they're all fine.
Okay.
So yeah. So that's pretty straightforward. And then we come on to the... Oh, incidentally, for the boxes, if people wish, certainly the plastic bottles and the cans are very light on a windy day and they might blow around. So we do these nets, sort of like a fabric net, and it just covers. It's got elastic on it and goes over the top of the box. So if people want those, they can just ring us up and ask for them. They can use them on the box.
Okay.
Stop stuff blowing away.
On that, John, have you noticed that since you've been doing more sort of splitting up the refuse into these different categories and different boxes, that litter has become more of a problem in the streets as stuff gets blown around, particularly perhaps out of the blue bag? Has it been good, or?
It's always a problem. I mean, some councils have 3 bins. They have a bin for garden waste, a bin for rubbish that doesn't get recycled, and a bin for recyclables. Now, even on a very windy day, even those bins will blow over. We've always had problems with litter, and I would say in the last 10 or 15 years, a lot of packaging products, even cans and glass, they've been light-weighted down. So years ago, packaging used to be heavier and not so much plastic. So it does cause us a problem, litter these days. And litter generally is a big problem for us. But yeah, on really windy recycling days, it can be a challenge. Some people put, we also have a lid as well. If people want a lid for the box to contain the items.
Right. So
that's possible. The old paper bag wasn't very good, and we're moving on to a new type of paper bag, which actually has a weight in the bottom of it. If you look into the bottom of the bag, it's like a big mouse mat in there. It's about, 10mm thick piece of rubber, and that was the idea, is to just secure the bag better.
Right.
It's not that heavy, it just secures it better. So we do know about the litter problem. There's not really a way around it, but some people do try and secure the boxes. They put the heavy box on top of the light box or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. So if we move on to the paper, traditionally we've always recycled, since I've been here 20 years, we've always recycled newspapers, And we've also recycled things, magazines and so forth. They've been the stock thing that we have collected. Very simple to recycle. They go off and they float mix the paper with water, float the ink off and make new paper. Quite a simple process. But we do also take, within the paper element, we take greetings cards, Christmas cards, birthday cards, Valentine's cards, whatever they are, and they can all go in. And we also take cardboard, which I've got some here. And the cardboard, pretty much anything. So flat cardboard, and that's off a tea packet. We'll take all that sort of stuff. Corrugated cardboard can go in. That's fine. We do ask, if people can take some of the tape and sort of sticky tape off, that helps. But it doesn't really matter. So yeah, pretty much an old Kleenex box. Pretty much anything on the cardboard side we can take. But what we do ask is if it can fit into the bag. Obviously, if you get a vacuum cleaner or a fridge or something delivered, that's going to be a great huge box, and it's very difficult to fit that into the vehicle on the day. There's like a little trough on the vehicle which lifts up, and if something's too big to go into the trough, the collection crew would have to rip the box up, which would take some time. So we do ask if it's really big stuff, if people could drop that into the household waste site, skip site. But if it goes in the box, we'll take any cardboard or paper. Now, I have some things here which some people might think are cardboard, but we do struggle with these. And one of these, the proper name for them really is a beverage carton, which you can see is looks like cardboard. It's got a plastic top on it, plastic cap. So there's plastic, and inside there's they spray it on, I believe. It's like an aluminium, a metal. So we've got three things there already. We've got cardboard, we've got plastic, and we've got metal on the inside. So that causes a real problem at paper mills, cardboard mills, and we don't want those being put in with the...
Right. I mean, I know those as TetraPaks. Is that the right term for it? Is that just a brand name? Or?
Yeah, it is a brand name, and it'll be on there somewhere, I guess. There'll be the little logo, I would think, somewhere. I think that's maybe it there. But yeah, there's TetraPak. There's a few different brands, and TetraPak are by far the biggest. Right. I think it is a Swedish company. We can recycle those. We've got, I think there's 5 or 6 banks out across Ryedale, and most local authorities will collect those. But they have to be kept separate from the cardboard because of, you've got a metal, a plastic and a fibre, and they're very difficult, and if that was going into the cardboard process, it would cause us a bit of a problem.
I mean, that sort of raises the issue really of the importance of residents knowing these very subtle differences, and obviously this film will help, but how are you finding it generally? I mean, in Kirby Moorside we've been having these blue bags where you're accepting cardboard for a while now. What's your kind of sense as kind of the understanding of what can and can't go in?
When we started the new scheme, we did issue all the residents with leaflets, and there are little things about that, about what can and can't go in. The sort of yes please with a tick and no thanks with a little cross. There's 3 different leaflets, and most things are on there. But if a member of the public puts something in, I mean, I've got something here, for example. Now that was a soap dish which I bought a couple of years back, and you can see it looks like cardboard. And when I took a closer look at it, I felt it was really smooth. I found it was laminated with plastic, and if I peel that off, there's a plastic layer all over the cardboard. Now, I wouldn't expect anybody to, they might not even see the plastic. So every recycling process will have an element of contamination built into it. So, for example, with cardboard and paper, we might be looking at 5 or 6% contamination. So if it's 20 or 30% contamination, we have a real problem because it will cost us a lot of money to, resort that. But every process has a contamination level built in, usually about 5 or 6%. So we wouldn't expect people to be looking at detail, but it's certainly the beverage cartons are a problem. And the other one which we would like to bring to people's attention are these things which they're like jiffy bags, I call them, but it is cardboardy, but it might have a documents enclosed sticker on, but often inside they have plastic.
Right, it's padded
bubble wrap.
envelopes, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, you know, we talked about the TetraPak or the beverage carton. We've got a plastic and a fibre, and they're very hard, they're very different materials.
Right.
So they're the main things to avoid, really. And also, we're not taking envelopes. And people often ask me about the envelopes, why we're not taking those. And there's two reasons, really. If you ask anybody in the waste paper industry, they'll call them stickies. And these self-seal, if you like, on the back of the envelope. You don't need to lick it to stick it down. It self-seals, and that's non-water soluble. They call them stickies in the industry, and it's quite expensive to rake all this stuff out once it's mixed with water.
Right.
And also on the front, a lot of business envelopes now come with a little plastic window, and again plastic and fibre. So at the moment we're not collecting envelopes. It may change in the future, but for the time being, it's the beverage cartons, jiffy bags, and window envelopes, or any envelope really, just to leave those out.
Right, okay.
And I think we've covered most things really. I think we're just about there with all the materials.
Okay, but in Kirby, certainly, which is where I live, we also have brown bins for all our gardening waste. So what's the kind of, apart from your obvious gardening waste, what other things could you put in there?
We only ask for garden waste, and we can't put kitchen waste in for the time being because of animal byproducts orders. Anything that's been in a kitchen or in a catering area, there's a chance of cross-contamination with meat and so forth. So we do advise that, you know, nothing from kitchens goes into the composter. However, you can, if you have potato peelings and you know, bits of cabbage or bits of salad that are left over, you know, they're great for home composting. But we do, you know, take anything from the garden. If there's windfalls or vegetables from the garden, you know, if you're taking vegetables, if you're growing veg at home and got little bits, that can go in, that's no problem. But essentially anything inside the kitchen, we want to avoid that because of the problem of it all came to light when the foot and mouth problem came to Britain. Not only in Ryedale area was the big cost of tourism and agriculture, but you know, everybody was affected, places where they could go and so forth, and it was a very big financial problem. So we want to be very strict about food waste and garden waste. They're two separate things altogether.
Right.
But yeah, pretty much anything from the garden, anything up to 3 inches in diameter, 75 millimetres in diameter can go into the bin because we shred all the material. And things like weeds, any sort of weed pretty much can go in. We collect about 8,000 tonnes a year of compost. So it's composted in massive, great big windrows. You get a lot of heat generation, which kills the weed seeds. So any sort of weeds can go in. Let's see.
And what happens to the compost afterwards that you've made? I know you've had compost giveaway days in the past. Is that something that's going to continue?
We have, yeah. We did one compost giveaway, and we may well do one again. Essentially, in Ryedale, what happens at the moment, the garden waste goes onto a network of local farms. It's composted down, sometimes with other agricultural waste, and is used back on the land. It's spread back on the land.
Right.
We do use Your Waste, another company in Scarborough, and they sell some of their product. You have to get up to a certain standard, PAS 100, it's public available standard, and some material is sold on, but most of it is just used back on agricultural land.
Right, great. Now what's this bin here display that you've got here to show us?
This is a little bin I use for mainly just to explain to people really before recycling started, but these are roughly, if we didn't recycle anything, this is roughly the contents of a bin in percentage. And obviously we've run through some of the things that are in the bin: plastic bottles, cans, newspaper, magazines, cardboard and so forth. So when you actually look at the section of the bin, you realise actually how much can be taken out for recycling. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to slim the bin down, because for those who didn't realise, when we take all the recycling, we can sell the recycling back to industry, and the local authority can get some income from that to offset the cost of collecting the material. So it's far better to, it still costs us to collect the material, but selling all the recyclables helps offset that. With this bin that goes to the landfill, we don't get anything for that. In fact, we have to actually pay for it to go to the landfill. And just so people are aware, if we take a refuse lorry to a landfill site, it holds about 10 tonnes in a refuse lorry, and when we tip that 10 tonnes, the cost of the landfill is about £20 for every tonne, or 20 or £25, something in the region, depending on which landfill we use. So you're looking at £200 or £250 to actually put the material in a landfill and bury it. But what the public might not know is, for every tonne that we put in the landfill, on top of that cost of the landfill is a landfill tax, which is going to go up to £72 a tonne very shortly. It started off at about £7 a tonne in 1996, and it's been going up gradually, and that's money that has to come out of council tax money, and it gets paid straight to HM Revenue and Customs as a tax. So like your beer and your cigarettes and your petrol and everything else is being taxed, your household waste is also being taxed. So that's why councils right up and down the land, and right across Europe, they're looking at focusing on the recycling and trying to minimise the landfill, because it's actually cheaper for the taxpayer to do that.
Right. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about some of these other recycling centres around the district, where you can take books and old shoes and so on and so forth, because that's a great way of reducing the waste in your green bin, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, we do the stock items here: plastic bottles, cans, newspapers, glass bottles, and so forth. But there are lots of other things you can recycle. Like you said, there's shoes, there's textiles, clothing. You know, we wouldn't want anybody to put any clothing in the bin. If it's clean and it's dry, we can recycle anything. Even old towels and bedding and so forth. It's all good for recycling. Preferably not duvet covers, and mattresses we can't do, but you know, anything else from the laundry that would normally go through a laundry, we can recycle that. Even if it's got holes in your jeans, like some of mine are now, they can go in and be recovered. They can be pulled apart and used in car dashboards and all sorts of things, mattress filling and furniture filling. So don't throw any textiles in the bin. They can go down to the local recycling centre. But we do have, I think there's about 20 recycling sites of varying degrees across the district, and there are other materials like aluminium foil, for example. Again, that's another very valuable material. I think about 8% of the Earth's crust is bauxite, but it's massively energy intensive to take bauxite from the ground, smelt it, and you know, make aluminium from that. So we would definitely recommend, if people you know, clean the food off foil, and that can be recycled. We do recycle it at the sites as well. And
going to your website will indicate where all these different recycling centres are around the district. You can find links to them all, can you? Or a map with them all on.
Yes, there's a list on the website, ryedale.gov.uk, and you know, if you click on environment and recycling, you'll find a list of all the sites. Or people can ring us up, 01653 600 666, and we can, you know, talk you through that, where all the different materials go.
And finally, John, you say you've been working for 20 years. You must have seen enormous changes in those 20 years in terms of the amount of waste that is being recycled. Let's think 10 years ahead. How do you see this sort of recycling issue in the years ahead? Are you hopeful that we'll be able to do even more than we do currently?
Yes, I have been doing this job 20 years, and when I started, recycling had only just kicked off. It was 1990. I came back into this country in 1990 and started my job in 1992. And I had been working overseas in developing countries where waste wasn't a very big issue. The packaging wasn't an issue, because people had their own gardens and they're quite a bit more self-sufficient. And when I came back to Britain, they were just starting to look at recycling and look at the waste issue. But right back then it was fairly low key. And also, 20 years ago, there wasn't the amount of waste that we have now. So things have changed over the last 20 years. There's a lot more rubbish, and there's a lot more different types of waste, particularly with plastics. Plastics are the most challenging part of the waste stream to deal with. So that's changed. There's been a lot of work done on packaging and lightweighting. A glass bottle and a can is a lot lighter now than it was 20 years ago. Looking to the future, there's lots of new technologies. You know, we've got nanotechnology and genetics, all sorts of things. And I suspect that certainly with plastic, that is so very, very handy for us. I mean, when you look around in your office or your home, or if you go into the hospital or somewhere like that, there's plastics everywhere, and they're massively useful. But I would hope for the future that certainly the challenge will be to look for something which would cause less of a litter problem, certainly in the marine environment, for example. I know the plastic bag and the reusable plastic bag, which we would want everybody to do, is very simple. You know, you don't need to take a plastic bag at the supermarket, just get a reusable one. And there has been a big drive to decrease the amount of litter and waste that we throw away. But I would hope that you know, new technologies will be able to drive that further and find materials which are photodegradable or better for the environment if they do end up out of our system, as it were.
Great. Thank you, John. It's been really fascinating.
My pleasure.